What is best practice? As professionals, this is a question that plagues us with our decisions. Should we offer the gold standard to the client who obviously doesn't have money? Is it okay not running the fecal and just deworming? Should we throw the nail trim in for free even if the client isn't willing to pay for it because the dog obviously needs it? Welcome to Vet Talk. I'm Dr. Nathan. Today I want to go into what it is to be a practicing professional. And there isn't really an answer to this. We all become our own unique professionals, but we do have to consider what this means so we can determine what we want to become. I don't want to give you the dictionary definition of professionalism because as professionals, we should understand what it is innately. By being a professional, we should want to naturally embody what it is. Professionals go beyond the average person to become something special. Because we have worked so hard, we want to make our professions better because we have invested so much to them. What do we consider normal and what do we consider average for people to act? Because a professional has to be better than baseline. When considering this, I would sometimes turn to my Sunday school days and the story of the Good Samaritan. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by the other side. So, too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. This parable teaches a lot. What I take away from this is that any class of person and any person is expected to help those in dire need. This is reflected in modern laws to a point. You aren't supposed to drive away from a car accident if you witnessed it. This is the basics of being a good person, and is the standard everyone has or should have. I began applying this a little further, saying to myself as I met people, well, they seem good enough. I don't think they would stab me in the dark back alley. If I was injured on the side of the road, they would help me out. And in general, that should keep a functioning society. In an emergency, we all pitch in to help to make sure the emergency is settled, regardless of background. If there's a fire, you call the firefighters. If there's a crime, you call the police. If someone is injured on the side of the road, call an ambulance. According to your means, you may do more. For example, if I had a water hose, I would spray it on the fire. Notice, though, I tended to mention we call professionals to complete these tasks. We live in a complex and developed society. Back in the day, anyone nearby a fire would likely be drafted or volunteer to a bucket brigade. Now we have people trained with better tools and methods to fight fires. We have firefighters who not only have training, but perhaps access to water with fire hydrants because we have society built with plumbing systems. We have become professionals because society has grown and people have specialized. So we call them in an emergency or when we need something done so that it can be done well, better than an average person could do. How do we become professionals? Police complete training at schools. Farriers typically complete coursework for varied amounts of times. My old college roommate works in computers and took tons more math classes than me. My other college friend who designed the logo for my podcast completed lots of art classes. As a veterinarian, maybe being professional is passing all the veterinary courses. Or is it when we get our individual state license? Or maybe it's when we're actually out practicing, interacting with clients and colleagues, and helping achieve care for animals. I'd like to posit that it's all of this. Since we've had animals, we have had to care for them. But our profession is younger. The first veterinary school was founded in France in 1761. If we zoom to the United States, Auburn Veterinary School, I mentioned because, alphabetically it's first, was established in 1892. But it wasn't the first vet school in the U.S. That was in 1879 in Iowa. In the grand scheme of professions, the veterinary profession is pretty young, compared with farriers who have been around for thousands of years. But at certain points in history, people came together and elevated professions. In 1761, people decided they were going to elevate and create the veterinary profession. And it becomes a tradition of continued elevation of the profession. We couldn't be where we are today without those who came before us. We couldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for other professions helping us. Sure, we had people who cared for animals. Farriers have been around a lot longer, and their profession is more known and understood throughout history. But what happens is society grows on the achievements of each other. As a veterinarian, I need mechanic, accountant, plumber, and construction workers' professional services to operate my business. In turn, they need me to protect their food supply and fix Fluffy. As society became more complex and specialized, each profession starts to regulate the individuals and work together to build on each other's knowledge. And then rules come from this, and training and tradition. Once a profession gets important enough, it's often regulated by the government. To be a veterinarian, you have to do a few things to be part of that tradition. You have to go through the school, the required training. You have to pass licensing tests to prove you know your material. You then have to practice and learn your craft and trade, not just in theory, but out in the real world. And we have to continue learning and improving our knowledge as professionals. We can never stop growing. This is when it gets challenging, when you're out in the real world, because that is when you are being the professional. A professional has received some sort of training and are experts in their field. Now, experts have a wide range. My local firefighter probably doesn't have the training and experience of a firefighter in California who fights wildfires. But my local firefighter has way more experience than I do fighting fires, so I consider him an expert. The same as a specialist horse surgeon in Lexington has more surgical skills than I do. We both do surgery on horses, but one has more experience or skill in a certain category. We give professionals certain deference in society because they can perform their skills so well. Because of that, we expect professionals to act above the average because society has granted them extra privilege, whether it be through money or prestige. But how do we determine how professionals are supposed to act? What is better than average? How is the average determined? I would say our elected officials are a good goalpost, and they make the laws to keep the minimum of how we act, which is hopefully below average. Our officials represent the values of most of America through the votes that they cast. Right now, with the felon draped in sex scandals, constantly babbling insanity, and prone to insurrections when he doesn't like the results of an election in office, I'm not sure we have a good standard bearer for the minimum standard or the average standard of good behavior, of professionalism. But maybe that's why I've been frustrated with professionals in my profession lately. Maybe that is the standard, and I want it better than that. I certainly have friends in the profession that I look up to and feel have a very high standard of professionalism. But there are a lot that do not hold that standard, and either my standards of professionalism were highly inaccurate, or we have accepted such a low standard that there are problems. It's in the real world how we determine how we are as professionals. Donald Trump is a professional politician. Is he the standard? I'm always confused by Trump supporters. I have heard them say they wouldn't have a drink with him, but they would want him to run the country. I've also heard them say they would love to have a drink with him. Granted, he doesn't drink. But is that what makes him professional enough to run the country? Trump is showing how he acts being a professional. People flock to him for how he acts and how they perceive he will fix the country. And professionals should be who people run to in times of need. Professionals have training and experience not just through their lifetime, but of society's lifetime. For veterinarians, the knowledge from 1761 onward was built upon to teach me how to be a professional. I know why we do things and the importance of why we do these things, so I should be even more fervent in protecting the ideals and laws relating to our profession. The same as a client should respect my position to accept when I tell them it's a good idea to have the law to get the rabies immunization and good that they get the rabies immunization for their animals. Professionals should act in a way that lets people aspire to, because they are at the height of their profession. For example, I want to have the best cattle herd, so I will listen to my professional to get me there. A professional should have higher standards than the individual in their line of work, and that would naturally transfer to other areas in their life. If you're a professional, I just don't think you cannot have professional attitudes to other things in your profession. Being a professional means pushing that standard, not just in your profession, but in other professions and areas of your life, because you show the respect to others that you want shown to you. If your young daughter was lost on the street and saw their doctor, she would run to the doctor because they are professional and know that the doctor would make sure they found their way home. You trust your doctor with your health and to do the right thing. Not just the right thing while he's in the office. It's no less with other professions. And if you don't trust professionals, are they really professional? Should they really have such titles and prestige? Donald Trump is a professional politician. If you listen to me much, you know I deplore Donald Trump. But with this episode, I'm using him as an example versus me actually hating on him. He has inherited the system and work of everyone that comes before him, and he doesn't respect that, as was violently evidenced on January 6th. Being a non-contrite felon, does he really respect the system politicians use? The judicial system, the legislative system, the executive system? Or is he just using it for power for himself? The question I have is, if your young teenage daughter were lost in the street, would you trust Donald Trump to get her back home safely? If not, is he meeting the standard of an average person, much less that of a professional? And then I started getting upset with this line of thought because I started wondering what professionals were at a local level. What is our basis for the minimum level of good? When I talk about the average someone, I know they are good because they wouldn't stab me in an alley, or they would help me if I was wounded in a ditch. If this is true, then a professional should be better than that, because isn't that a pretty low standard? The last few years, I've been trying to determine what a professional is, and I think some of it finally came to me. I remember making excuses for people, and I kept feeling awkward about it, but I didn't know why. My uncle used a farrier. I did not appreciate this farrier. I had little luck working with him and would not recommend people using him because I did not feel comfortable that his services would be medically beneficial for horses. Between him and his significant other, who he worked with, I had many problems, some of which occurred when I pointed out their illegal horse commerce and horse sales, and how they dealt with that, which I will get back to shortly. Whenever I talked to people or my uncle, I kept saying things like, well, I don't hate the guy. I'm sure I could have a drink with him. You know, he's a good guy. I don't think he'd stab me in a dark alley, or if he saw me bleeding out in a dark alley, he'd probably help me. Whenever we were working on horses together, he was polite. He helped the horses if I needed a hand. But something about that seemed wrong. Why was I defending this basic character trait of helping others as this guy being a good professional? And that's what I was doing. I defended him as a basic human being because I had nothing else to defend him with regarding his work. I went back to the basics. He would help me when needed, and if I got kicked by a horse, he would pull me out from under it. And in a dark alley, I don't think he would stab me. But does that make him a professional? No, he wasn't a good professional. We need both a certain level of work and the pride to protect the profession and other people's professions. And then I started understanding society needs to put more pressure on professionals and holding them to standards. This farrier is a fine person, but he wasn't a professional. I'm not trying to insult him, but he shouldn't get the respect accorded of a professional because he wasn't one. The quality of his work and the quality of how he handled his work did not line up with that of a professional, as I have been describing earlier. As vets, we constantly learn. We go to CE. As vets, we are given titles that others shouldn't get. And we can be good people. But there's more to being a professional. A professional knows the laws and understands how in our own profession everything ties together. As a vet, I know that certain laws and tests we enforce are important. For example, if we have an outbreak or uptick of Coggins or EIA cases, this could dramatically affect individual horses and the entire horse industry. Kentucky is the horse capital of the world, and its industry is tied to horses. A lot of animals and people could be hurt dramatically if there were gigantic problems in the horse world. I, as a vet, know of the problems that could occur in a worst case scenario. I am a professional. So I advise my clients of the importance of that lab test and recommend testing and am backed by the law in this matter. I have many clients fight me on this, and I think that is inappropriate in this situation. Often they don't know the law. But a farrier, for example, should be versed enough in the profession and related professions to know this law or at least trust my professionalism. The farrier and his significant other who worked with him I mentioned previously was accepting of horses traveling and being sold without proper lab testing. Really? He should be one of the ones towing the line and pushing others to trust the vet's advice on this, both as respect to fellow professionals and as respect to the industry and clients he serves. But I can't just rag on him. Why I am so depressed with my profession is their lack of professionalism. As a vet, do you write your records so anyone can pick them up and continue care on an animal? It's the law in Kentucky. I don't think it is in Indiana. I just got some records from there, and there's very few notes. Continuing care is challenging. And as vets, we know writing these records would be best for the animal. Having good records allows that vet or any vet to continue care. Yet how many vets don't do this? How many substandard records have you received or written? I have seen records that were completely illegible to non-existent, or to being behind locked doors hidden from those who need them. Are those kind of acts being professional? How are the animals or your fellow vets helped by that? We know as veterinarians how rabies laws are important. And while we are not enforcers, how many animals walk out of our clinics without rabies? How professional is that, since we know rabies is an incurable disease? I hope no rabid dog bites that poor little girl I keep mentioning, trying to find her way home. I've had vets cuss out my reception staff when they were trying to get records for a sick patient. I've seen exploitation of veterinary government officials who use the government to deny the ability of vets to practice medicine so their individual private practice can have control of the market. I've seen vets write health certificates without having the proper licensing to do so. I've seen vets giving out drugs without seeing animals. I've seen vets sell sterile saline as a treatment and not advertise it as sterile saline. Another pet peeve is I see lay dentists practicing illegally in Kentucky. Yet lay dentists want to become a valid profession in the state. Their first step to becoming a valid profession is by breaking the laws and hurting other professionals. A great first impression, lay dentist. And yet, I've also seen vets sell lay dentist drugs so they can illegally practice medicine and illegally sedate horses. Not to mention, other more gray areas of things I have seen is charging $300 for sub-Q fluids appropriate, is giving breaks to some customers appropriate while others pay full price to subsidize the people that you give breaks to? Is working your staff to the bone appropriate? Professionals should be what people aspire to. A child lost and running in the street should be able to see a doctor and know they will be safe. But are unprofessional professionals just a product of society and who we truly are? Politicians only get away with what we let them. Professionals only get away with what we let them. In school, they taught us of role models, and presidents are typically on that list. We have elected a president whose morals are negligible and holds no standards of professionalism. Does it then surprise us that our standards are not something to aspire to at a local level either? I'm not saying professionals don't make mistakes and learn to be better during their career. To err is human, and even professionals are human. And the standards we have today are higher than they have ever been in human history. But a professional should be a standard bearer, not someone unidentifiable in a crowd. Veterinarians have a unique role because we take care of animals, and animals are so entwined in our lives. I was told at the beginning of my career that veterinarians were respected. I have not seen evidence of that. If we want our clients to respect us, we have to start respecting the profession that we are in. This means writing records. This means telling clients they will not get service if they don't update their rabies. This means not taking advantage of our colleagues or our clients. This means charging fairly and being honest about recommendations. We should have standards, and professionals should be held to standards. Those standards should be higher than the average citizen. While writing this article, I saw a continuing education lecture on being a professional. I was curious what they would say, so I listened to the lecture, and I was not really surprised that I met the criteria for being a professional as they presented it. It seemed pretty basic to me. However, I do not feel that my community thought of and acted like I was a professional. I'm not sure why, if I met all the points of being a professional, why my community did not respect me as one. One line of thought, and there's probably more, but with a little more thinking, I realized that my community overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump. The lecture speaker had 12 points of being a professional, and Trump missed the mark on more than the majority of them. But I realized that he is what my community thought a professional should be. Now, since I own my practice, I do conduct some social experiments, and people did not like when I acted like Donald Trump. It seems they find Trump's attitude is only okay when it's towards someone else. But they also didn't like when I acted like a professional as presented by the CE speaker. So I was confused, but along that previous line of thought, realized if most people believe Trump is a professional, and that is the standard of professionalism they want, I could not lower my standards to that, so they wouldn't accept me as a professional. And that's a problem my clinic has, and I would say many in America. Being professional has consequences. Overall, in this country, half your clients will likely not think you are a professional. In my region, more than half. I spent a lot of time railing against Trump because he is a catalyst and wields so much power to allow substandard American values. But the problem is, he was only allowed to do this because of us. We are allowing mediocrity when we have the potential for so much more. I can't affect things on a national stage, but I know we as a country need to become more professional. To be able to hold other professions to a standard, we as professional veterinarians must make sure everyone in the profession starts acting like professionals. I'm Dr. Nathan. Thanks for listening. I hope our discussions are valuable to you and aid in giving perspective. If you want to contact us, please reach out to theveterinarypodcast@gmail.com. You can find a complete list of the podcast episodes on SoundCloud. If you find this information helpful and want more content, please join our Patreon, patreon.com/theveterinarypodcast. And don't forget to follow our Facebook page, facebook.com/theveterinarypodcast. As always, thanks for listening, and I hope this information is helpful to you. If you do find it helpful, please like it, share it, so other people may find it helpful as well.